So that was part one of my first ever blog on Jungian psychology. It dealt with the four functions of the conscious ego: the thinking and the feeling, the intuition, and the sensation. So this next part is going to be based on the Myers-Briggs type indicator, also called MBTI. And what this goes over is the 16 personality types that come out of the four functions and the way they constellate and interact with each other. In the Myers-Briggs typology, there are 16 different personality types. There are 4 fundamental functions, 2 orientations, and 2 different types of functions, the rational and the irrational. 4 times 2 times 2, making 16. Right now, these look like just a bunch of jumbled letters, but after a real quick survey, you'll see how easy they are to figure out. So we'll run through several examples, starting with this one, ENTJ. E, the first letter, stands for extroverted, and it refers to the orientation of the primary function of this personality. J, the last letter, refers to the type of the primary extroverted function. It stands for judgmental, which means the primary extroverted function is either thinking or feeling. And since the overall primary function is extroverted, this means the primary function is thinking or feeling. And which is it? Thinking. Which means the secondary function is introverted, and it's a perceptual function, intuition or sensation. Here it's intuition. The first letter in the typology will always be E for extroverted or I for introverted. It will refer to the orientation of the overall primary function. The second letter will always refer to the primary perceptual function, and it will always be either N or S. The third letter will always refer to the primary judgmental function. It will always be either T or F. The last letter will always refer to the type of the primary extroverted function, and it will always be either J for judgmental or P for perceptual. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 16. This is probably still pretty confusing, so we'll do some more examples. And this time, we'll start with this, a barrier. This is the barrier between you and the world. From the outside come all the objects you'll need to make sense of. Within will be the archetypes, the predefined psychoid categories we're all born with. These archetypes will be fulfilled by these objects we have coming at us. These archetypes include the femme fatale, the good father, the great mother, and the wizard. In the center of all these and other archetypes is the self. The self is the core of everyone's personality, and it's bigger than anything, including our conscious ego. And when we're talking about the 4 functions and the 16 personality types, we're talking about the orientation of that conscious ego. In these next examples, the most important function will go here, the second most here, the third one here, and the least used here. Primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary. It may seem right now that it would make more sense for this to be clockwise or counterclockwise, but you'll see this arrangement actually works. So let's move on to some more examples. And we'll start with this one, with our new graph. ESTJ. The first letter E refers to the orientation of the primary function, so it's extroverted. The last letter J refers to the type of the primary extroverted function. In this case, it's judgmental, thinking or feeling. And since the primary function is extroverted, the primary function is thinking or feeling. And in this case, it's thinking. Which means the secondary function is either intuition or sensation, and it's introverted. And here, it's sensation. So the secondary function is introverted sensation. Now, just because the primary function is extroverted as a rule doesn't mean it always is. Sometimes thinking is directed introvertedly. And just because sensation tends to be introverted doesn't mean it always is. Sometimes it's directed to the outside world. Just because this person primarily views the world through thinking and sensation, it doesn't mean they don't intuit, and it doesn't mean they don't feel. They just don't do it as much. Now here's where the layout I picked really shines. Look at the way the rational and the irrational functions relate to each other. They're like two waves washing in and out between the unconscious and the outside world. It's like this for all the examples. Now, as you can see, as we move from the first to the fourth, from the primary to the quaternary, these triangles get smaller and they get more ephemeral. That's just my way of showing that as you exercise some functions more than others, you're using those functions at the expense of the others. Let's look at another example. INFP. Primary function is introverted. Primary extroverted function is a perceptual function, intuition or sensation, which means intuition or sensation is going to be a secondary function here. And which is it? It's intuition. Notice where it goes. So the primary function is introverted, and it's going to be either thinking or feeling. Feeling. Again, just because feeling is primarily introverted doesn't mean it's never extroverted. And just because intuition is primarily extroverted doesn't mean it's never introverted. And just because this person is primarily an intuitive and a feeler doesn't mean this person never senses, doesn't mean this person never thinks. Now another example, ENTP. Primary function is extroverted. Primary extroverted function is going to be perceptual. So the primary function is going to be perceptual. Intuition or sensation. Intuition. Secondary function is introverted, thinking or feeling. And here it's thinking. And so on. So let's do one last example. ISFJ. Primary function is introverted. Primary extroverted function is judgmental, thinking or feeling, which means thinking or feeling is a secondary function. And here it's feeling. Primary function is introverted, and it's going to be intuition or sensation. And here it's sensation. And so on. So that's it on my first blog on Jungian psychology. I hope you liked it.